Is Zscaler a buy or a sell? Let's get started with the model. This is a large cap company, 29 billion market cap. They're trading at 187 a share and they have 154 million shares outstanding. Zscaler is the world's largest cloud security platform. Incorporated in 2007, headquartered in San Jose, California. Let's look at their financials. The way you value a company is you estimate the free cash flows into the future and then you discount those numbers back to today's value. That's what we're doing in this video. And free cash flow is cash flow from operations minus capital expenditures. Their free cash flow goes up every single year from 230 million in 2021, up 44% to 330 million, up 75% to 585 million. It is only up 11% into 2024, 650 million. They did complete that 2024 fiscal year. Net income is the profit or loss on the income statement. It's revenue minus expenses. That also improves each year, but it's negative. The negative is the smallest, negative 36 million in 2024. That's probably due to a lot of stock-based compensation, which is an expense that brings down your net income, but it doesn't affect cash flow. Revenue is the sales for the company, and that exactly doubled from 1.1 billion in 2021 to 2.3 billion in 2024. Their growth in 2024 was pretty minimal. Revenue up only 6%. Last year went up 34%, before that 48%. We estimated 4 years of future free cash flows. We also estimated a terminal value of all cash flows past year 4, that's 25 billion. We discounted those numbers back to today using the weighted average cost of capital. We get a value of the company of $22 billion. We divide that by 154 million shares. And we get a calculated stock price of 142. They're trading at 187, so they're trading at a 31% premium. It's a sell according to the model. Do you think it's a buy or a sell? Let me know in the comments. There are 152 companies in the same industry as Zscaler, and if they have a number in red, they're worse than the median. If they have a number in blue, they're better. They spend 200 million in CapEx. Microsoft spends the most, 49 billion. Their debt to equity ratio is equal to the average at 0.9. So that means for each dollar of equity, they have 90 cents of debt. They do not pay a dividend. They generate 650 million of free cash flow, half of GoDaddy, 1/4 of Corpay. They rank 12th in market cap at 29 billion. They're trading at 19 times book value. Price to book is stock price over book value per share. We can't look at their PE. They have negative earnings. They're trading at 44 times free cash flow, which means their market cap is 44 times their free cash flow. And they're trading at 12.5 times revenue, which means their market cap is 12.5 times their revenue. 2.3 billion of revenue, which is less than the average, more than the median. And they're growing a lot. Their 5-year annual revenue growth rate is 47%. CrowdStrike is 56%. And it looks like they're trading between their 52-week low and 52-week high, although they are closer to their 52-week low. If you put $10,000 into this company when they started trading in 2018, in 2021, your $10,000 will be $110,000. But if you're still holding on, your $10,000 will be $67,000, which is still a great return, a 33% annual return. To summarize, I have them trading at a 31% premium. I give them a ranking of 6 out of 10. Would I buy it short term? 7 out of 10. I think it's a good value right now. Long term, definitely 8 out of 10. Ratios are a bit weak because they're still pretty small and growing, but eventually these will improve. Financials look great. Their revenue grew 111% since 2021. Free cash flow up 182% since 2021. Let's look at their income statement. Here's the 3 months ending 10/31/2023, the 3 months ending 10/31/2024. Revenue last year, 500 million. Now it's 627 million. Pretty nice growth, about 127 million of revenue growth. 127 million over 500 million. I think it's close to 25%. Let's see if they give a breakdown of this revenue. Half their revenue is in the US, 319 million. EMEA, 186 million, that's 30%. APAC, 100 million, that's 16%. And all other countries, 23 million, 3%. Here's a breakdown of their customers. Channel partners, 558 million. Direct customers, 66 million. So the margins are much higher on direct customers than channel partners. Channel partners are like middlemen, so they need to get a cut of the action. No single customer is more than 10% of their total revenue. One customer has 11% of their accounts receivables. So it sounds like this one customer doesn't pay on time. Their receivables are building up. Below revenue is cost of revenue. These are all the expenses directly tied to generating the revenue, 140 million. Revenue minus cost of revenue is gross profit, 486 million. That's up about 100 million from last year. So their gross profit margin is 77%. Last year was 78%. Non-GAAP is 81%. Non-GAAP strips out stock-based compensation and amortization of intangibles. So their revenue grew 26% from last year. It went up 131 million. They talk about the revenue increase. It was mainly due to an increase in users and sales of additional subscriptions to existing customers, which contributed 95 million additional revenue. The remainder was new customers, as we increased our customer base 12% from the prior year. Let's look at their operating expenses. Sales and marketing, 300 million. R&D, 150 million. G&A, 50 million. So operating expenses are 517 million, which is more than their gross profit. So they have a loss of 31 million. Last year was a loss of 46 million. But they have 160 million in stock-based compensation. 16 million is in cost of revenue. 65 million in sales and marketing. 59 million R&D. 21 million in G&A. That's why they have a loss. If they didn't offer so much stock-based compensation, their net income would be $160 million higher. So instead of having a $12 million net loss, they probably have like a $140 million net profit. Because you can see sales and marketing is almost half of their revenue. R&D is 25% of their revenue. That's 74% of their revenue just right here. And then you have G&A, which is 9%. So 83% of their revenue is operating expenses. 23% is cost of revenue. Their expenses are 106% of their revenue. That's why they have a 6% operating loss. They receive 30 million of interest income. This is the interest on their investments. They pay 3 million of interest on their debt. So a pre-tax loss of 4.4 million, 7 million of taxes, net loss of 12 million. They're adding shares. Last year they had 148 million shares outstanding. Now they have 152 million shares outstanding. Let's look at a balance sheet as of 10/31. Current assets 3.4 billion, current liabilities 3 billion. So their current ratio is above 1. They have 2.7 billion of cash and short-term investments. That's a lot of liquidity. 400 million of accounts receivables. This is how much money is owed to them when they sell on credit. 150 million of deferred contract acquisition costs. These are the costs to obtain a new customer, and they carry these expenses on the balance sheet, and they amortize those costs over the term of that customer's contract. PP&E, 409 million. Here's a breakdown of the PP&E. Most of it is hosting equipment, 430 million. Then you have capitalized internal use software, 230 million. So the gross value is 638 million. They depreciated or amortized 270 million. So 409 million is the book value. That's what they record on the balance sheet. Another 286 million of deferred contract acquisition costs. These will be put onto the income statement beyond 1 year. This 150 million will be put onto the income statement within 1 year. Lots of goodwill, 417 million of goodwill. Goodwill is the premium you pay when you acquire another company. Total assets, 4.7 billion, same as last year. Total liabilities, 3.3 billion. They have a lot of deferred revenue. This is when they receive cash for a service they provide, but they haven't provided the service yet. When they do provide the service, then they'll remove the liability off the balance sheet and book the revenue onto their income statement. Convertible senior notes, 1.1 billion. So if the stock price goes up a lot, the holder of the note can convert the debt to equity. The convertible senior notes only pays a 1/8 of 1% interest rate. The reason people are willing to take such a low interest rate is because they're hoping they can convert the debt to equity and make money on the increased stock price. Assets minus liabilities equals equity, 1.4 billion of equity. They raised 2.6 billion from selling their business, and they took that 2.6 billion and burned 1.2 billion. They lost 1.2 billion from running their business. So they have 1.4 billion left over. Most of it is cash. Let's look at a statement of cash flows. This is for the trailing 9 months. Even though they have a net loss of 12 million, they generated 330 million of cash flow. Mainly because of the stock-based compensation, 150 million. We add that back here. And a cash inflow of 312 million from accounts receivables. So this means they sold on credit in the past and received the payment in this period. In their investing section, they spent 17 million on PP&E, last year 28 million. They didn't spend anything on acquisitions, last year 4.4 million. In their financing section, only one thing. Let's look at a stock on Simply Wall Street. Its last price, 187, 28 billion market cap, down 5.5% in the past week. Down 15% in the past year. It started trading in 2018 at 28 bucks. And if you bought it at IPO, you would have been up 200% in 2019. Then it took a COVID dip in 2020, Then it ran up to 355. That was its peak of all time. That was at the end of 2021. But it hasn't even gotten that close again. It went from 350 to below 90 in May 2023. The stock went up a lot over the next 18 months, hitting about 250 in February 2024. That was the highest point in 2024. So hopefully you didn't buy it then, because you'd be down quite a bit. It did fall to 150 at a couple of points in May 2024 and September 2024. So the stock definitely moves all over the place. Just in the beginning of this month, it was over 200. Now it's 180. Simply Wall Street's valuation is 325. They say the stock is 43% undervalued. 41 analysts priced this stock at 225. They also say it's undervalued. The revenue has grown a lot since 2015. It was just 53 million. And then from 2015 to 2021, it 10x'd the revenue. It got to 530 million by the beginning of 2021. Now it's over 2 billion, 2.3 billion in the trailing 12 months. They were debt-free up through 2020. Then they added 870 million of debt. Now they have 1.1 billion. I think most of the debt is convertible notes, as we saw on the balance sheet earlier. Equity is a little higher than their debt, equity of 1.4 billion. They have more cash than equity or debt, cash of 2.7 billion, so they could pay off all their debt if they wanted to. The CEO's salary was $97,000 in 2018. Now it's $24,000. You gotta really respect a CEO that takes a small salary. Total compensation, $25,000. He doesn't even get stock options. He's been there 17 years as CEO. In the past year, lots of insider selling, nobody buying. Half the company is owned by institutions, 37% by insiders, and 13% by the general public. The co-founders are the biggest shareholder, 19% and 17%. The reason the CEO doesn't take much of a salary is because he's worth $5 billion. The next biggest shareholder is Vanguard, then BlackRock, UBS, Fidelity, Nomura, and to bottom out the list, Artisan Partners. Their employee count went from 600 in 2016 to 7,300, and the ticker trades on the NASDAQ, London Stock Exchange, Mexican Bolsa, Zicha, Wiener Börse, and Sao Paulo Bolsa. If you want a copy of my discounted cash flow model, watch the video in the top right corner. Thanks for watching.